So if you own or run any type of business, even if you are a department manager, you are constantly being pitched sales ideas from all kind of companies. They may be trying to sell you marketing. They may be trying to sell you services. They might be trying to sell you inventory or product. And the process of dealing with salespeople is something that has three parts of it. One is deciding whether or not you actually want to buy that item. The second part is actually negotiating the price of the item. And the third part is agreeing on whatever the terms are. And sometimes it's important to look at the fact that that salesperson has a little bit of an advantage over you, and they do this all the time. They negotiate and sell this product every single day, day in and day out. Even if your role in your company has to do with sales, you're not selling that item. So today we're going to talk about how to negotiate and how to close a sales deal as a buyer to your advantage. So you're on the same level playing field, or maybe even a little bit better than the selling agent that's working to try to slam dunk you and close you into a product or service. We're going to talk about pricing, how to make the decision. So the first thing is, and we're going to talk about how to say yes and also say no, and even when you want to buy something, how to say no. So the first thing is to recognize you're going to hear a lot of qualifying questions from that salesperson. How soon are you looking to buy? How often have you heard that? What's your budget? Are there any other decision makers? Are there other people that need to be part of this? You've heard these over and over, and they're annoying a little bit, but also there's a reason they're doing it, and sometimes there's not a reason they're doing it. Sometimes it's really counterproductive that they're actually asking those questions. It doesn't help their cause at all. What we're also going to do is show you how you can turn those questions around to your advantage to negotiate and leverage with that selling agent, that salesperson. So the first thing you want to do is obviously take your time. And I know you already know this. It's nothing special about going slow. Don't rush into something. They're always going to ask you, to buy today. They're going to put pressure on you to try to do a high pressure sales pitch, depending on the service. And maybe guilt you into like, well, why are you wasting my time talking about this if you're not going to buy? And one question or one thing you can say to turn that around is, well, don't you want me to make an informed decision? If the person's saying, why do you got to think about it? Or, do you want to buy right now? Or if you ask them to send you more information, well, if they get exasperated asking them to send you information by email or a brochure, and they get frustrated that you're not buying, you ask them, well, don't you want me to make an informed decision? As a salesperson, don't you care about me to make an informed decision? It's a trick question. If they say, no, I don't, then they're a bad salesperson. If they say, yes, I do, then say, well, why don't you want me to look at this? Okay, fine, right? What about qualifying questions? If they say, how soon do you want to buy this thing, service, product? Here's how you answer it. You don't give them a specific answer. You say, we have nothing we need to wait for, but we also have no deadlines. If this is something that's good, that's going to help us, that's going to make our business better, obviously we want to do it right away. So what you're doing is you're tying in their needs. Their need is to sell today, sell, close the deal, with you seeing that it's going to help you, right? Not just random if they did a good job selling you, but them showing you how it's going to help you. So what you tell them is, I want to buy it as soon as I know that this is going to help me. We have nothing we need to wait for to buy this as a company, but we also have no deadlines, because you also want to make them aware that there's nothing that they have to do it by a certain date, because sometimes that hurts. If you say we have to close the deal within a week, now they can drag out some of the stuff to maybe not give you the information until right before that deadline. So if you tell them we have nothing we need to wait for to buy, but we also have no deadline, now you're still in the driver's seat and you answered their question. And you're also starting to tie in your answers to what you want them to do. What you want them to do is to show you how this is going to help your business. Not how it's going to help them, how it's going to help you. How many times have you had a salesperson start their sales pitch on bragging about their company? Hey, we have all these awards. We have all these other customers. We've been in business 20 years. we sell to, Amazon. Who cares? How does that help you, right? None of those things directly say how it's going to benefit you, right? You've been in business 20 years. That's great. Is that any better than somebody been in business that started yesterday? Maybe they have a new idea, right? We sell to all these big companies. Well, that's great. How are you going to help me? I'm a small company. Maybe you're going to be too busy with them, right? So those things aren't directly helping you. It's more of a bragging session for their own ego. The other question they're going to ask is, this is the big one, what's your budget? How much you want to spend? How much do you have to spend on this? I don't know why companies ask this. I get it. They're trying to qualify you and screen you to see if you're a real customer, to see if you can afford it. But it's also a trick question because the price is what it is. So what I would ask them is, well, let me ask you this. The budget obviously means how much I'm going to pay you to get this thing, right? Yeah. So is my budget, whatever it is, going to affect the price? Like if what I tell you how much I'm going to spend, is that going to change the price at all? No. Well, then what does it matter? Right? So if you say I have $1,000 to spend, are you going to change the price to $1,000 if I say I only have $1,000 to spend? Or maybe if something costs $500, if I tell you $1,000, are you going to change the price to $1,000? No. Then why does it matter what I have to spend? Why are you asking me that, right? That's one part of the answer. The other part of the answer is, well, here's how we look at budget. Here's your answer as a prospect. We don't think of anything as a business expense. Everything we spend money on is for the purpose of making more money with our business. Does that make sense? Yep. Good. So if we spend money, it's for the purpose of making more money with that thing. So it's not really an expense. It's not like, going and buying a pair of jeans as a personal expense that you're just going to throw money away on. We're investing our money. Now, here's what you can tell them. You can get really into weeds with them. Most businesses have a profit margin of about 20%. Meaning if a business at the end of the month makes $1 million in sales revenue, at the end of the month they keep $200,000 after they pay payroll, rent, utilities, insurance, cost of sales, cost of goods, all their expenses. At the end of the month they keep about 20%. Make sense? And some salespeople know about this, some don't. So then you can tell them, so if we spend $100 on something as an investment to sell more stuff, if we sell $500 more in sales, we break even, right? Because 100 is 20% of 500. So in order to have this item make sense for us, we have to sell probably 7 or 8 or 9 times what it costs us. So if we buy something from you for $100, we have to see that it's going to make us $800 or $900 in new sales, not existing sales, but new sales. Does that make sense? So the way we decide our budget is we look for an 8 or 9x return on our money. So if what you're selling costs $1,000, we want to see, can we make an extra $8,000 or $9,000 in sales from this? And I know there's no guarantees. It's a speculative thing. But we have to see probably, most likely that's going to happen. So what you can do as a salesperson is you can help show me how it's likely I'm going to make $8,000 or $9,000 sales on this thing that you're selling me for $1,000. So there's your painting the picture. We're giving you a roadmap of how to sell us. Also, that will help you make your decision on what you should be buying, right? So if somebody's selling you something for $1,000 and you can't see where it makes you $9,000 in more sales, that's your helps make your decision. Even if it seems like a nice thing to have, if it's not making you money, then don't do it. And you might say, well, Dave, why should it make 8 or 9 times? Well, if you make 5 times sales, you're just going to break even. 6 times sales, you make a little money, but you also have to remember some of the things you spend money on are not going to make any money. You won't know in advance which things work and which things don't. Maybe 10 or 20 or 30% of the things you try to do aren't going to work. So you have to factor that in with the ones that do work. So that's both a calculation you can do to tell your salesperson how you make your decision and also tell yourself how to decide which things to buy and how much to pay for them. And if you tell your salesperson that, if later on you say no, you're not going to be in a position where they're going to try to say, well, what about this? And what if we do this? And what if, they're going to try to overcome those objections. When you tell somebody an objection like it's too much money, or you tell them that you don't want to buy right now, or you have to wait, they're going to try to overcome the objections by saying opposition or argument with your objection. But if you tell them, we need to make 8 or 9x, you didn't show me how I'm going to do that, now it's on them. You put the objection on them to fix, not on you to argue with. And that's one of the worst positions to be in, where you have to defend yourself why you're not buying. Because they're also going to make you feel guilty, like you can't afford it, or you can't make a decision, or you're not the authority figure. Which brings me to the third qualifying question is there anybody else in the decision-making process for you to decide to buy this thing? And you can ask them, well, that's a good question. On the selling side, is there anybody else that you need to check in with in order to sell this thing? Or do you have authority to execute this deal by yourself, right? Now you're putting them in the same position. If they're a salesperson and you say, well, if we want to negotiate some of the terms, are you able to make a decision to negotiate those terms yourself without checking in with anybody? That also eliminates that whole back and forth, which you get a lot of times with salespeople, especially like when you go to a car dealership, right? The car salesman might ask you, is there anybody else involved in the decision-making process of buying this car? I don't know. Is there anybody else involved with your negotiating this deal? Or are you going to go back and forth with the manager, right? And even not in a car dealership, some salespeople in a B2B environment, a business transaction, they have to go back and forth with somebody too. So you can ask them, well, I don't know, is there anybody on your side? Obviously, when you make a business decision, you're going to check in with resources. I might ask people for advice. I might ask people for information. I might check on things. That doesn't take away my decision-making process. So let me turn it around on you and ask, why are you asking me that question? Do you not want to talk to me? Right? You can say it in a way that's a little more diplomatic than that. But if they say, well, we don't want to have to waste our time, what's wasting your time? You might have to explain it twice to me, right? If you don't think it's worth investing your time in talking to me as a prospect, then maybe I'm talking to the wrong salesperson, right? The other part of it is, look at the sales process you went through. How many times have you contacted a business about some service or some product, and first you talk to like a lead generator, a screener, that asks you some questions, that basically just qualifying questions, peppering you with questions. They're not giving you pricing, they're not giving you product information, they're just asking you stuff. And then they say, well, let's set up a call with our senior sales advisory. You know what that person was? That person was just a screener, qualifier, a lead generator. And if you pass their test, now you go to the real person. So if they asked you, do you need anybody else involved in the decision, ask them, well, are you the decision maker, or are you just a lead qualifier? Because if you are, then I don't want to talk to you. I want to only talk to the decision maker, the head salesperson, or the sales manager, whoever it is. So always turn around what they're saying to your advantage. And look, you're not trying to be mean to them or make their life miserable. You just don't want to be outplayed with psychological Jedi mind tricks that distract you from the true decision-making process for your business and put you in a position where you're being kind of vague on what the facts of that product or service are. Now, regardless of how that sales conversation goes, they're going to pitch you on all their stuff. They're going to start by boring things about how long they've been in business and how good they are and what their owner does and who their other customers are, and you can kind of let that in go in one ear out the other. And then they're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the product. Now remember, of course, they're only going to tell you the good things about their product. They're not going to tell you about the downsides. You may know some of those. And they may avoid telling you the price. They might say, do you want to go ahead with it? Well, how much does it cost? And they might gingerly tiptoe around that. But once you have all the information you think you want from them, ask them this straight question. Is there anything else you think I should know before I make a decision? Is there anything else I need to know as a potential customer to make an informed decision besides what you already told me? And they're now trapped again. If they say, yes, there is, well, what is it? If they say no, there isn't, okay, that's good. Your video will be back in 8 seconds. In the meantime, remember, you have access to live one-on-one consultation, undivided attention of a licensed certified expert in this subject and many others. We want to listen to your story. We want to hear your questions and give you expert advisement of your options. We want to tell you what we know about your situation and what options you have. Now back to your video. Go into my decision-making process, and I'll let you know. I may have some other questions. Now, keep it positive, right? You don't want to slam the door on them. Even if you don't think you're going to be buying this item or service, you want to let them know that this seems interesting. This was a good conversation. I enjoyed talking to you. It was a beneficial process. I learned a lot from it. I may think of some other questions that come up. I can't think of any right now. Is it okay if I ask you some questions later today or tomorrow about the product or service? Right? How can they say no to that? Again, you're asking them for permission. Is it okay if I ask you some more questions later today or tomorrow about what we talked about? Now what are they going to do? Right? They know you're giving them the brush off. They know you're not going to be signing on the dotted line right then. But they also now don't have a reasonable way of countering that by saying, "What? Come on, buy it right now." They might say, "Well, what questions do you have?" Well, I don't know. I may have some that come up after I consider it. And if they start getting into timing and pressure of making a decision right then, take whatever the dollar amount of that transaction is. If it's a $1,000 thing, a $50,000 thing, a $100,000 thing, I would ask them, do you think it's a good idea to make a $5,000 decision in 22 minutes? Would you advise that? Would you advise one of your relatives to make a decision on $20 or $30 or $40,000 with a 22-minute decision-making process? Again, you're turning it around on them. Obviously, they can't say, yes, I would, because that's obviously irresponsible and misleading and hypocritical. If they say, yeah, you're right, you should think about it. Say, look, I'm serious about doing this. Obviously, I wouldn't have contacted you. I want to spend money. The other thing, going back to the budget item, if the person asks you what's your budget, another thing you can do that will really flip them out is take some very large number. Let's say you're talking to a company about marketing and advertising. Let's say it's a TV station that you want to do commercials on, and you expect that they might hit you up for $15,000 or $20,000 in advertising. Tell them, we are looking to spend $1 million on new advertising this year. We're trying to find ways to spend money. Obviously, the money has to fit into our rule of 8 or 9x, right? But we're looking to spend $1 million on 8 or 9x. Is that true? Well, if I told you or asked you if you could make an 8 times return on your money spending $1 million, could you probably come up with $1 million to spend if you could be guaranteed to get 8 times $1 million back? Probably would. So in reality, you would spend $1 million if you could guarantee to get 8 times your money back. Anybody would, right? But that's the thing about making a decision. It's the guarantee, and nobody's going to really have a guarantee, so that's your out. So throw them into the mix of saying, look, we're looking to spend money this year. Whatever amount you want to tell them, maybe not $1 million, is fine. You could tell them 100,000 or 50,000 or 10,000. We're looking to spend money on stuff this year to grow our business. We're looking to spend money. We have extra money to spend. We have budget to spend. We're trying to find places to spend money. We just need to find places that make sense, that give us an 8 or 9x. Are you one of those? Show us. Right? Take control of the conversation. Now, at the end of that initial conversation, like I said, is it okay if I ask you some more questions later today or tomorrow about the service that maybe didn't come up right now? Yep. Okay, good. And then a few days later, see if they check back in. Don't call them back, even if you have questions. Wait to see if they call back, if they email back, if they follow up. Because here's the thing. The company that you deal with, at some point, you're not going to be dealing with the sales department anymore. You're going to be dealing with the customer service department or the production department or the operations department, whoever fulfills the order that you paid for. You give them money and they fulfill it. their sales department should be the one that's most responsive. That's the one that's the tip of the spear. That's the one that's collecting the money, that's getting the money, right? If they don't follow up in 3 or 4 days or 5 days or a week, what does that tell you about the importance of follow-up and customer attention in that company? If their sales department's not doing it, what about their service department or their operations department? And if at some point you're in a conversation about objections or concerns or questions, you can ask them, look, you said when we talk that if I have any problems with the product or service, I can call somebody and they'll get back to me very quickly, or I can get answers, or if I have difficulty with delivery, I can get answers. It took you 5 days to call me back on the sales side, and sales should be more responsive than operations, because that's obviously more important to your company, right? So why did it take so long? And that puts them back on their heels a little bit, and that might get some concessions. They might say, can I do a lower price? Can I give you better terms? But already you're starting to put them on the defensive rather than the other way around. If they do call you back, have a list of a few questions already lined up. Even if they're not real questions, you want to ask them, well, what's the normal delivery time? One question you want to ask is, are there customers that you can show that have had proven success with this product, service, whatever it is? If it's marketing or advertising, you can say, can you show me a customer that made 8 or 9x on using this? Again, it gets back to the same one core thing that's true. It's genuine. It's really what you're trying to do is make an 8 or 9x return on your investment. So if you keep going back to that like a broken record, can you show me a customer that has made 8 or 9x extra sales on this investment? And it's a real simple question. Either they have it or they don't. And now it puts them on the defensive again. And then you have some other questions. All right, good. I'm going to think about this a little more, and let's talk again later. The other thing you want to do, no matter what you decide you want to go forward with, if you want to buy the product or service or not, what you want to do is start with a non-buyer response. And your non-buyer response is, hey, thanks for all the information. It was very helpful. It was good information. It seems like a good product, a good service. But that is not the next thing we are going to do right now. It's not the next thing we're going to do. You're not telling them a hard no. You're not telling them we reject you, we decided not to. It's not the next thing we're going to do right now. And that gets back to, we're trying to spend $1 million on stuff, right? You decided to do something else next. And maybe they're second in line, third in line, farther down the road. But you tell them you're not the next thing we're going to do right now, and see how they respond. Some salespeople might say, okay, that's fine, bye, and just give up. They might say, well, what do we have to do to make it the next thing? What is the next thing you're going to do? Why is the next thing in front of us? They might have curiosity about it. And that gives you the opportunity to start doing your negotiation, probably on price, maybe on service conditions or delivery conditions or whatever, to get that ROI higher. And you can point out, well, the other options give us a 10x on our investment, and you're only about a 7x. And it's because it takes too long to get your product. Or maybe it's because, payment terms. You want, COD versus net 90 or whatever, right? Now you can start throwing in the things that you want to negotiate. So now the things you're negotiating have a reason, not just it's you against them butting heads, see who can be the stronger personality. You actually have a logical reason for wanting that concession, lower price, better payment terms, better quality, better delivery, whatever it is you're asking for, or everything. And you're connecting it back to that 8 or 9x broken record. So they can't really argue against why, because you have a reason why, right? Other than if you're just negotiating with a company and over price, and somebody says it's $1,000 and you want $900, it's really just a battle of who gets that extra 100. You've already agreed that you're buying it if you're negotiating that down to $900. It's just you and them having a pissing match over who gets to keep the 100, you or them, right? And you don't want to be in that position. You want to be in a position where they have to justify why they're not giving you that concession. And you can say, we've decided that's not the next thing we're going to do. Maybe in the future we will, but not the next thing we're going to do. And now they have to decide how they want to handle that. Do they want to give the concessions to be the next thing and risk maybe never having it, or not? So those are ways you can turn around those qualifying questions to your advantage. Always go back to your broken record of 8 or 9x and make them justify it and say, look, I know it's not your responsibility to make the profit for us. That's our responsibility as a company to make the profit. But I am asking you to help show me how I can justify this purchase. I want to buy this thing. I want to spend money. That's why I contacted you. But you need to help me in my head see where it's going to come to that conclusion. If you don't have a reason why you're buying it, they're just going to try to convince you and pressure you and guilt you into doing it. If it's just a decision of you like flipping a coin, I feel like doing it or not, right? If there's an actual logical, rational, calculated reason, 8 or 9x, now they have to appeal to that, not just trying to convince you or guilt you or coerce you into doing it, right? Otherwise, you're just sitting back saying, yeah, you know, I might do it, I might not. Convince me. Right now it's a personality thing. Now it's a psychological thing rather than a logical thing. You don't want to put it in that position because you might not win. They might have better powers of conversion than you do, powers of suggestion. Even if they don't, you don't want to fight that battle. You have better things to do. So put it in their hands to show you where it's going to make you the money. Turn the questions around. What's your budget? Well, is what my budget is going to change the price? I'll tell you how we arrive at a decision. We hear what you have to say about price. We don't want to set your price. Whatever you say your price is, that's what we're going to make our decision on. That puts them in a bad position too, because they might be less likely to hit you at a high number. If they think you're going to negotiate with them, they might hit you at a high number, expecting you to try to chop them down. But if you say, look, I'm not here to set your price. Whatever you say your price is, we trust that you believe that that's the value of your product. What we're going to do is we're just going to make the decision based on the price you say. Now, of course, later on, you're going to negotiate the price, but you're putting them in a position up front to try to take their best shot at you from day one. So you can go right to that and say, well, whatever you say your price is, we'll make our decision. Here's how we do it, 8 or 9x. Here's why, 20%. Do the whole process. What about time frame? How soon are you looking to buy? Well, we don't have anything we need to wait for. They love hearing that. We also don't have any deadlines. So we're looking to find something that's good as soon as we can. Why? Is there any delay we have to wait for you? Why? Is there anything? Are you guys going out of business? Right? You can be a wise guy a little bit if you want. And then what about other decision makers? Anybody else involved in the decision? Well, obviously, don't you want me to consult with colleagues and friends and maybe employees and maybe some staff to get feedback on this once I know more about the product? Don't you want me to see how it's going to work? Get some ideas? Or do you just want to isolate me so I don't have any other assistance? And by the way, on your side, are you 100% of the decision maker? Are you authorized to change any of the terms and conditions? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be talking to you if you're not 100% authorized to make this transaction. So you can turn it around on them, use it to your advantage. If nothing else, these techniques will help soften up that salesperson so they treat you more with respect, treat you more as a honorable business person, not trying to slam dunk you into a product. And not all salespeople do. Look, salespeople have a hard job. They have to hear no 9 times out of 10. So they get a little bit gun shy. So use that to your advantage, right? Soothe them. Let them know you're interested in buying. You're not a tire kicker. You're not wasting their time. You do want to buy something. You're trying to buy something. Help me buy something from you. I'm trying to buy something from you. That will give them more of an incentive to try harder with you rather than you being on the defensive. Sometimes people will negotiate by saying, well, I don't know. I might not buy. I'm really not serious. Try to talk me into it. And the salesperson is either going to think you're full of shit because, you really are just putting on an act, or they might believe you and not try that hard. So don't try to play hard to get when really that's going to backfire. Tell them you're a serious buyer, but you want them to be a serious seller. So good luck with your negotiations. Put some comments below if you think that any of this needs some new reflection. Also, let us know if you are trying some of these techniques out with your sales pitches you get, if what kind of response you get from the salespeople, and how it affected the selling process. See you on the next video. Thank you for watching. Remember, you can access live one-on-one personal consultations with a licensed private investigator, a licensed commercial insurance broker, licensed certified real estate title examiner, also a certified civil court mediator. So if you have a need to talk to an expert in any of these fields, or even a licensed building general contractor, you can click the link below, actualhuman.com, and arrange a live one-on-one undivided attention with a licensed expert where you can ask any questions, get information about your situation, and we'd be glad to help.